and Android app. Until recently, I looked after both iOS and Android, but now my focus shifted to focus more attention on iOS development and taking the team forward. I've worked on various different apps in the past. Before I joined M. Brown, I've worked for clients such as Louis Vuitton and L'Oréal Paris. I've been doing app development now for around about 6 years. Prior to that, I was a .NET developer doing both C# and Visual Basic web and desktop applications. And then I made the move over to Apple, and I've never looked back. So today I want to talk to you about SwiftUI. Now, back in summer last year, I was fortunate enough to attend WWDC. And like most people there, I was absolutely blown away and amazed by the announcement of SwiftUI. There've been talks about upgrades to UIKit for quite a while now, and where were Apple going to go with it? Was it going to have an overhaul or a change in direction or pivot in the way it worked? A lot of the talk was actually around merging AppKit and macOS equivalent together as well. UIKit and AppKit together, but no one anticipated this, and just completely out of the blue, SwiftUI was announced. So obviously I learned a lot about SwiftUI whilst at WWDC, chatting with the developers and the engineers and chatting with other people as they discovered it, as the sessions went on. But what I did learn is I learned a whole lot more about it when I got home, and I'd always wanted to write a book. I always wanted to write a book now for a few years, and we'll touch on more on this later in the Q&A. But I was approached by Pack Publishing back in September, and they were looking for someone to write a SwiftUI book. And I thought, I've learned a lot about SwiftUI at WWDC, but what I want to take it to the next level. And at the time, I didn't have enough spare time to do a personal project, or I didn't really have anything that I needed to do a personal project in. But I thought if I was to write a book about that, that will kind of take me outside my comfort zone with my learning curve a little bit, and allow me to really explore what SwiftUI is all about. So off I went in September and started to learn everything I could about SwiftUI. So obviously, as you know, the book was released last month. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk about tonight. I mean, I could sit tonight and take you through every chapter at a time and tell you little bits about each chapter, but I figured that would get a little bit boring. So what I wanted to do is to kind of give you an insight to the journey that I went on and the things that I picked up and that I felt were relevant to SwiftUI over the course of the last 6-7 months of writing the book. So we'll start with an introduction to SwiftUI. Now, Apple's slogan at the WWDC was better apps, less code. So, okay, that sounds cool. I like that. But exactly what do they mean by that? So let's take a quick look. Now, here is a basic example of adding a UI label to
I think your screen might have gone in a background mode or something.
1 second. What are you seeing on the screen at the moment?
I'm seeing like a blurred background.
Have you seen anything so far?
Yeah, that's clear now.
You can see that, yeah?
I can see that. So maybe when you go into presentation mode, can you try that again?
Yeah, let me just try presentation mode again. Is that still there?
It's still the same than before. Maybe, it's the typical thing that you need to change the permission on the, this is something new about the Catalina. Maybe you need to let Chrome permission to share full screen or something like this.
I'm going through the app. Can everyone see this here now?
Yeah, I see Keynote and the editing mode in Keynote.
Okay, so if we can see this, I think I might just leave it on that for now, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Maybe try and click on Animate on the top right, and that will take that tab away on the right-hand side.
On this one. Okay, I'll just move that over there. Animate. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Now, is that better? Yeah, excellent, fantastic. Okay, so better apps, less code. Here is an example of adding a UI label to a view. Now, I understand I've probably overdone this a little bit, and it could probably be done a little bit simpler, but I'm just trying to prove a point. So there you go, nice and simple. So the question is, how would you do something like that in SwiftUI? Just like that. It literally is that easy. One line of code, nice and simple, straight off the bat. No messing. Everything you've got here is done for you straight away here. That's great. So what else can it do as well? What else is better apps, less code? So let's take a look at a table view, for example. Again, basic structure of building a table view. Instantiation, setting your delegates and your data source, and then all your different delegate methods you need to kick in. Something we've all grown used to over the years. You know, I don't have a problem with it. It's like a second language to me now, but we could make it a lot simpler. So how does SwiftUI do it? Just like that. And it literally is that easy. You just add a for loop round there if you're iterating over an array, and it really is that simple. That, for me, is better apps, less code. Well, is it better apps or is it less code? I don't know. It could be the same type of app, but it's just less code. We know that for sure. And that, for me, is always a win. So how does this happen? How does this all work? How is it all possible? Well, it's done through what's called declarative syntax. So some people might be saying, what's declarative syntax? I mean, what's the difference between that and the syntax that I use now? So the syntax that everyone's kind of used to is called imperative syntax. And the difference between the two, the best way I can describe this is it's declarative syntax is more procedural way of thinking. And if I was to do this in kind of a spoken example, the best way I could describe this would be something like this. I would like a cup of tea. There you go. There is your cup of tea. And that's how declarative syntax works. Think about it a little bit like we just saw before with the text view. I want a text view with text on. There it is. So how does that compare to what we're used to? How does that compare to imperative syntax that we're all used to? Well, this is kind of how you would the spoken language would interpret imperative syntax. I would like some boiled water, a tea bag, milk, and then sugar. Allow the tea to brew for 10 minutes, and add a teaspoon of sugar and add a certain amount of milk. Oh, and remove the tea bag. There's your cup of tea. And that, for me, is the same way as this. I want a label. I'm going to instantiate it. This is the text of the label, and I want you to add it to the subview for me. So that's the best way I can think of describing imperative versus declarative syntax. Now, is it declarative syntax? Is it brand new? Well, actually, no, it's not. It's been around for a while, and it's potentially you could have seen it before and just never realized. Like I said earlier, I used to be a web developer, and a lot of the time I used to write store procedures to databases. And if we take a look at a store procedure, again, a perfect example of declarative syntax, telling you what to do, where to go in a procedural order. Nice and simple. Flutter uses a declarative syntax as well. That's another cross-platform offering from Google at the moment. That's gaining some real traction in the world. Flutter is, I mean, when SwiftUI was announced, a lot of friends of mine who are hardcore Android developers all turned around and said, looks a lot like something we've seen before, and they're right. But if we take a look at Jetpack, which is on its way out soon, I believe that is also following a very similar pattern as well. So in terms of UI development, it really does seem to be the way forward, and it's probably because it's the more convenient. And I have my theory around that, which we'll come to in a much later slide. So now we've seen a little bit about the declarative syntax and what that does and how that offers. Big question in everyone's mind, why would I want to use SwiftUI? Well, truthfully, there's probably lots of reasons, but there's one of them that sticks quite well with me. And this is one of the first things that pops up into my head when I was at WWDC. And I'll give this example. You've all heard the term full stack developer. Okay, so let's take a web developer, for example. Now, there's a lot more here to full stack developer, but these are the three main core principles of being a full stack developer. You've got a front end who does your CSS, your HTML, your JavaScript. Okay, so that could be one dev. You've got someone who's cool with application layer, view logic. Yeah, that could be another dev. And you've got someone who never touches the front end, who's just the service layer, the business logic, the connectors to the DB or the APIs. If you're good at all them, and you're also good at platform instantiation, then you know what, you're a full stack developer. So I was often asked the question, how would this work in an iOS developer's world? Well, let's try and split it up a little bit. Do we have a front-ended application? Do we have a front-end developer? Do we have one guy who literally just does interface builder or nibs all day long? Maybe. I've never come across it. I've come across people who work on service layers and business logic and don't switch the front end because constraints are just not their jam. But usually, if you're good at the front end stuff, the interface builders, you're more than likely to be good at the view logic stuff. And in all fairness, you can probably do this side as well. You can probably do the business logic because that's probably where you started. So is there such thing as a full stack iOS developer? That is one of the burning questions. Well, yeah, I think there is in a way because, by default, we probably already are a full stack developer. We distribute to the App Store. Okay, that houses the platform for us. Could we write our own APIs? Maybe that's something we don't do just yet, but with server-side Swift, it's a potential option for the future. So, but for me, this is where the real separation comes in for the first time with SwiftUI. As I mentioned before here, each one of these roles is a separate individual role, whereas these here, yes, you can kind of split them out a little bit, but in my eyes, really, they would all merge together. I did have a nice animation for this, by the way, but hopefully because we're presenting this way, I can't show you. So here we go. So we're up to, so how could we use SwiftUI in this? Well, for the first time ever, the front end separation, the front end is actually being separated out with SwiftUI. With the ability to write declarative syntax and write all UI code in one hit, everything from housing your text views to building up your lists, it's all done through this declarative syntax, which is it's not as developer hardcore code intense as doing it programmatically as we saw before. It's a lot more designer friendly. So imagine you could have someone who is it could be a graphic designer who has a passion for coding, but wouldn't know and show any interest in service layer logic or even application logic. Whereas currently he would do his designs and be happy with them, and he would pass them over to a developer because he wouldn't want to mess around with interface builder. He wouldn't want to mess around with nibs or auto layouts or constraints and anything like that. But what happened if we separated our iOS project into two parts? If we had one section where one project, which was all SwiftUI front-end code, we could have a graphic designer go in there and build up this real simple declarative syntax. Doesn't need to touch the back-end logic. That's his job. He can design. He can make it how he wants to look. There's no developer interpretation of building the UI. It's done the way he wants to do. And then the other team sitting in the background can do the application layer or the service layer. They can do them together. They can split off the teams. So with this, you've got the core fundamentals, the core separation between each primary role there. Yep, I like to do this and I like to do service layer as well, and I'm probably going to end up doing SwiftUI. So does that make me a full stack developer? Full stack iOS developer? I would say so. Yeah, absolutely. That should say iOS developer, by the way. Sorry, my bad. So yeah, so I think with more of a case of actually having an outright full stack developer with SwiftUI as part of the work than we did with the current thoughts. But that's something I'd like to open up for discussion, because I've mentioned this theory to a few people before in the past, and some people have said, no, iOS, there's no such thing as full stack development in iOS. And then some other people kind of agreed and said, yeah, we are kind of full stack. And then I've kind of put this forward to them, and they've also kind of said, well, actually, yeah, you know what, that makes more sense now. So I'd love to have a discussion about that later and get people's thoughts on that. So what we're going to now. So what's one of the big questions I keep getting asked a lot is what exactly is available in SwiftUI at the moment? So let's take a look, and we're doing a compare side by side. Now, these are some of the options. This is what SwiftUI has got to offer. So UI table view, yep, as we saw earlier, it's called a list. UI label, text. UI text field is text field, and so on and so on. There's a lot more which I'll sort of cover in another slide in a moment, but they're kind of your basic fundamentals there. And all in all, they do tend to work pretty well. I mean, I'm going to come on to something a little bit of a gotcha later, but as a whole, you could build a solid app with that. But what about everything else? So not everything, unfortunately, not everything is SwiftUI ready. And when I say not everything, I mean, you know, there could be some real core fundamental parts of the app. UI collection views, for example, not available. UI text view, which really did surprise me, not available. So I'll give you an example of this one. So the UI text view, in my book, I was doing a recipe app, as some of you may find out later. I was doing a recipe app, and I wanted a multi-line text view, expecting that to be out of the box SwiftUI, something as simple as that, not available. Had to revert to UIKit to do that. And also offering like MapKit as well, something again that I would expect to be out of the box with something like SwiftUI. Again, still just not available. And there are many others as well, but they're just some of what I feel is the quite important ones in there. So how do we fix this? So two main options we've got: UI view representable and UI view controller representable. So what are these? Well, these are protocols, representable protocols available in iOS and also AppKit as well for those using SwiftUI and macOS. And they essentially allow us to create a wrapper that sits and harnesses around any UIKit elements that we want. And it allows us to present them back into SwiftUI. So let's have a quick look at some example. So here we go. Here's a quick code that I mocked up. This is UI representable of a text view. So we're going to create a new SwiftUI component called the text view, which is of UI representable. And what I'm going to do, what I've done in here is, this was an example that I used for building a multi-line text view. All you would do inside make UI view, inside there, you would create and instantiate your object for UI text view, set it to multi-line, however many lines you wanted. This binding here is the text that you pass in. And we have a coordinator. And what the coordinator does is you assign a coordinator class, which you have down at the bottom here. And this handles all your delegates for UI text view. So your did finish editing, did return, etc., etc. And then you have update UI view, which basically every time there's a change made, the view gets updated. And essentially that's all you create. And this allows you to really customize the class you want. You could just use it. You could just return an instance of UI text view. And that would be great, and it would straight out of the box do what you want. Or you may want to do some custom manipulation, set particular font sizes. That's hard-coded to this particular instance here. Or you may want to pass in a font to set it dynamically. It's entirely up to you. But it really does allow you to get creative with that and really customize components that you create, UIKit-specific components that you want to use in SwiftUI. How do we use it? So we've built all this up. How do we listen to our app? Well, remember the saying from before, better apps, less code. It would literally just be that. That's how we would drop that in straight into SwiftUI. You can see there's the text view we've created, and we would just drop that into our body content, and that would do everything that we've asked it to do. So it was a multi-line text view. We set a multi-line. We just set a height on top of that to give it the height. If it's set to multi-line, and it just works out of the box. Absolutely fantastic. So the burning question is it still important to understand and appreciate UIKit? Well, absolutely. In my oh, that's the wrong slide. Apologies. Absolutely, in my my understanding. Let's all think back to when Swift was first released. So Swift 1 came out, and it was, you know, a little bit buggy here and there. Everyone's getting new to it. So if a new developer was coming along to iOS development at the time, and he'd heard about this cool new tool, programming language called Swifty he wanted to use, would we tell him to completely ignore Objective-C and just stick with this and just run with it until it's production ready? No, we wouldn't. We'd say, you know what, learn Objective-C, understand the fundamentals, but also keep your eye on the development of Swift. I'd not long moved over to Objective-C, probably in about 18 months when Swift first came out, and you know, I made sure I carried on learning Objective-C till at least Swift 2, Swift 3 came out. And only at that point did I really give up on Objective-C, and have since never gone back. So it really is important to make sure you understand the fundamentals of UI kit. And that's not only just for legacy app development reasons as well. It's as we saw before, Apple are giving us the way to harness the power of all controls using the representable protocol, and that's great. But it's just more for understanding where everything comes from. Obviously, SwiftUI has been built from the ground up, which is great, but it's still, it's still a UI framework that is, accustomed to Apple's human interface guidelines and design principles. So it's definitely worth understanding. So, is SwiftUI production ready? Well, it says it there, doesn't it? Was Swifty 1.0 production ready? No, it wasn't. But you know what? There's two ways you can answer this. Now, I've put yes, absolutely there. It's a very, very good question, and I've been asked it so many times since returning from DubDub. There is a lot in SwiftUI that works. There is a lot in SwiftUI that works really, really well. If you're building an app around them components that work really, really well, then yes, it's production ready. Apple wouldn't let you release it to the App Store if they didn't think it was. If you can run on an iOS 13 device or multiple versions of iOS 13 without any flaws, if you can run it on an iPad, if you're doing a universal app and it works, then yes, it is production ready. Absolutely. If you can't, if for some reason you find yourself putting a little hack in here and there, or a few other little bits and pieces in there, or maybe cutting back on something that you would have liked to have in there because it just doesn't quite look or work as well, then I would say no, it's not production ready. Not production ready at all. So, like I said, SwiftUI still does have a lot to offer. Here's a list of more things that SwiftUI can offer. So we've got image view, image, date picker, toggles. The full navigation stack is in there. Stack views replaced with V-stacks and H-stacks, which are fantastic ways to write code. And also a stepper as well in there. And there's much more after that as well. It does, like I said, it does offer a lot that works. But there are occasions when things don't work 100%. So when writing the book, I was up to about chapter 9 and hit a brick wall. It was late one night. It must have been about 10 p.m. in the evening. And I had this bug where I would tap on a UI bar button item, or a bar button item as it's called in SwiftUI. It would present my sheet. I was happy. I did what I needed to do on the sheet. I would dismiss the sheet. I'd then tap on the bar button item again, hoping to go back into the sheet, and it wouldn't. And I was like, oh, maybe it's a bug in the simulator. So I reset the simulator. No joy. Tried it on a physical device. No joy. Tried it on 2 physical devices and an iPad. Still no joy. Okay, this is worrying. Problem is, at this point, you start to troll through the forums. You start to look at the developer documentation, and because it's still in its infancy, there's a lot of people out there who have shared a lot of knowledge in the short period of time. Like, I mean, a lot of people. But I wasn't getting anywhere. I was hitting a lot of brick walls, which then thought to myself, well, if people are not getting the same answer, or people are not asking the same questions, it mustn't be a bug. It must be something I've done wrong. So I continued on into the night. The chapter needed to be delivered. I had to get this done. I had to get it finished. I was working away at this. And I think it came to must have been about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. It was a late night. It was dark, raining outside. I was really, really frustrated. And I even stopped to myself. I said, is this a feature? Is this a new bar button item feature? Can you only tap on it once and you got to reset the app? So, joking. I knew it wasn't. Anyway, I saw a similar question about repeated clicks on, wasn't a bar button item, but it was repeated clicks on a button on an Apple developer forum. So I started to look through, thought maybe something's related. This thread was going on for a long, long time. I would say probably 3/4 of the way down the thread, someone turned around and said, I'm not getting this problem, but I'm getting a problem where you hit a bar button item once. I was like, oh, okay, so I'm not alone here. Next person came along. Yeah, I've got that problem as well. And all of a sudden, and I'm looking at the timestamps, and these were like within an hour of me being on looking through the forum. So these have only just been posted. So when I started looking into the problem, early on in the evening, these people had not even posted. And luckily I trawled through it, and the last post, which must have been about 15, 20 minutes before I read it, turned around and said, yep, it's a bug. You need to put this fix in, and it fixes everything for you. And the fix was literally adding a blank text view in on your navigation bar title. Everyone said, no idea why it fixes it, but it does fix it. Hopefully we'll get it fixed in the next version of iOS. And I think that was at the time was iOS 13.3, and I believe it got fixed in 13.4. Or it's due to be fixed in 13.5. And then the next day, I put that in. I thought, okay, is this right? Is this a hack? Should I put this in the book? Do I really want to be putting that, like, oh, by the way, you've got to do this hack in the book? Don't know if it's going to sound good or not. And the next day I went on the forum, so many more posts about it, saying, yep, that's perfect, fixed it for me. Yeah, it's a bug, it's a bug. And it was a bug straight there. So you got to ask yourself a question there, is that production ready? Is having to put something like that in, something as what should be a standard as tapping on a bar button item to present a sheet, as opposed to it doing a push, which worked flawlessly if you changed it to a push, segued to a push. But I wanted, for my particular UI instance, I wanted it to be a modal, a present sheet. Is that acceptable? Is that production ready? I mean, it's code that works, but what happens if they fix it and then the next release of iOS has an adverse effect for putting this in? Who knows? So I think to answer the question really is it production ready? Well, really, it's up to you. It's as production ready as you make it. And there's a lot to take from that. It's how desperate are you to get a SwiftUI app out there? How desperate are you to write one? Everything you release has to be iOS 13 only and above. And we certainly can't start looking at it at my current workplace because we still support back to iOS 10, unfortunately. So we've still got to go down that route. But it doesn't mean we can't start prepping for it. I mean, we do, with every release, we do deprecate a release of iOS. So with 14 coming out, we'll no longer support 10. We'll move to 11 as the base. So eventually it will get to that point where we will start using it. And potentially for us and for what we need, it would be production ready at that point. Maybe Apple will look to open source it this year, like they did with Swift. I'm not too sure if I can see that happening or not, but it would be amazing if they could, and it would definitely accelerate the speed in which the framework would develop. But yeah, I mean, and you see people out there releasing apps already with SwiftUI, and you know what? Like I said earlier, if it works for you, if you're not making any compromises, and you're happy with what SwiftUI has to offer, and that works for you, your app, and your business, or your own personal app, then absolutely, it's production ready. Release it and build on it and learn from day one. There's nothing better than that. If it's not, then hang fire, but certainly keep an eye on it. Certainly, try to integrate it into your app to see where the gaps are, see what's missing. Join the forum, join the community, shout out loud, say, we need it to do this, we want it to do this. One thing Apple are good at doing is they're good at shaping it for the developers. So, and with that note, we actually come to the end of my presentation. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening. I hope I didn't talk too fast. I mean, people here in the UK talk fast anyway, so I hope it's not been a problem. I'm happy to go back over any of the slides. Obviously, I think we're going to open up for a discussion now. I could have sat and gone through code snippets more and etc., but I kind of just wanted to give you an overview of the journey that I went on with SwiftUI, and then we can just sit and have a conversation now about how it's going on in the next steps. So yeah, so thank you very much. And as you can see, there's a promo code for the book. So if you go to pack.com, you get 20% off the ebook version of my book. But if you're feeling lucky, we do have a bit of a competition coming up. So Adrian, can I pass back to you?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks for that presentation. Also, yeah, everybody, you know that we're going to be giving away 10 copies of the book. And for those maybe not so lucky, there's this discount code. So that's great. I appreciate that you actually went straight on with the elephant in the room, right? Which is when can we use SwiftUI for our apps, right? Because I think there is no developer out there right now who is not sold on the declarative syntax approach, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's so many people ask me, is it production ready? You know, what's you know what you know when I mean, I walked straight away from coming back from WWDC. People walked straight into the office and said, when can we start using it? And it's like, whoa, slow down. Let's take a look at it first. Let's learn from it first. You know, let's learn from the community. You know, I mean, there's no doubt about it. It is exceptionally powerful. You know, in terms of performance, that's one thing that I haven't really tested yet. You know, in terms of performance, I mean, the app that we do at my company is a retail app. So a lot of the logic for displaying the data is done in the back end. So whether it will have any impact on things like carousels and banners we have, I think only time will tell. But you know, the list view works very, very well from what I've seen. But without the support of the collection view or everything that a collection view has to offer, we still have to wrap that around UI view representable. So, you know, does that hinder you've been using SwiftUI, or is representable powerful enough that it doesn't? It harnesses it quite well, and it would work just as well as using a collection view. I don't know. Again, these are the things that I was talking about at the end. These are things you need to try for yourself. Use this time to have a play and see what it is you need to use it for. If you have to use an old UI kit object, then yeah, absolutely go ahead and use it. Have a play with it. It may be that it works seamlessly, and then you can sit there and wait for them to bring in a SwiftUI equivalent out.
Right. So I think it might actually be good news that we don't have to use it yet, because it probably takes a while to get used to the new paradigm and so on. So yeah, it's good, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, without a doubt.
Okay, so I think we can jump straight to the next point in our agenda today, a little bit sooner than expected, but that's great, because then we have more time for interaction from all the participants in the session. So right now we're going to a small Q&A interview with Chris, and I have a few questions here that I would like to ask him for the benefit of everybody. So my first block of questions is on the book itself. Like, how does it happen that you write a book? And I think you mentioned already a few aspects, that you were approached, right, by PAC, the publisher. And so can you tell us a bit more about how that came about?
Yeah, so I've wanted to write a book now for probably about 18 months. I just came up with an idea for a book one day. I wanted to do one on dependency management, because it's something that was missing. And, you know, I'd done a few talks on CocoaPods in the past, and with Swift Package Manager being a real big thing, you know, and especially since the support of it in Xcode recently, I thought it'd be good to, you know, to talk about dependency management, not only the tools to use, but I mean also the theory and the best way to use dependency management as well. So a colleague of mine, actually, he's written a few books for PACT. So he gave me an email address and said, contact them and, you know, submit an idea. So I did. I didn't hear anything. And then after WWDC, he was approached to do a video book for PACT, and he declined. So he said to me, maybe my colleague might be interested. So I said, well, yeah, I would love to, but I really want to write a book. I've got this really cool idea, dependency management. And they went, okay, that sounds good, but we don't want to do that. We want to do a SwiftUI book. Are you interested? I was like, yes. You know, for the reasons why I explained before, obviously, you know, having the taste of it at WWDC and then coming home and wanting something to get my teeth into with it. But, you know what it's like. Everyone has a personal project, you know, which, you know, you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to do an hour every night. And then you get distracted. And then a week has gone. And then a month has gone. And you've got to pick that up. But if you've got someone saying, okay, you've got a book to write and you have a deadline, you're going to learn. You're going to sit there and you're going to learn. And that's what really excited me about this. And I thought this is a good opportunity for me to really get my teeth into SwiftUI. And that was it.
All the way into the night.
Yeah, that was. I remember that night very well. It was a Saturday night. I came upstairs about 6:30. I said to my wife, I said, I'm going to go and do a couple of hours on the book. And I hit that roadblock, and I hit it hard. It was really difficult because it was just, you start to question yourself a little bit. Am I understanding this right? Have I missed something? But you have no one to ask. There is Stack Overflow and there's the Apple developer forums, but I mean, a lot of my friends who are iOS developers had not even got around to it. You ask, have you tried SwiftUI yet? No, have you tried? It's like, I want you to help me with something. I don't want and it wasn't there, and it got quiet. It sounds silly. It actually got quite lonely at some points, and but yeah, that was a very late night. But I said the moment when I found that, I mean, I was crying with joy, but I was so angry at the same time. Like, Apple, why something so simple, but it's just how it was.
I think that's a great story for several reasons. One reason is what some developers may end up doing on a Saturday night that the rest of the population wouldn't imagine. That's one aspect of it. And the other aspect is that one of breaking new ground and the loneliness you were mentioning. But then quickly you found a lot of people in your same situation that they were. I can picture like people in parallel trying to work in the same thing, and they all start up on the same bug.
Yeah,
all of them writing in frustration.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it was amazing to see on that thread the amount of people who was just had that light bulb moment. Yeah, that works. That's right. And like I said, a lot of people are all on the same level. And sometimes you want to proceed with a little bit of caution as well, because they may turn and say, "This is the way I do it. And this is the way I've got something to work." And you think to yourself, but is that the right way? Have you understood it right? And I think it's okay if you're learning on a personal project, because you can try that and play with it. But if you're writing a book and you're going to preach this to someone, and then to turn around and say, someone who may pick that book up and say, well, no, he's done that completely the wrong way. This is a hack. Why is he doing it this way? Because you've not understood it. That was the difficult part. It was, to making sure that you were, what you were practicing was exactly what you were going to preach. So, like I said, there's a couple of occasions with a hack. I had to mention it in the book because it was a problem at the time. I didn't know when the book was going to get released, if it was going to be done in time for the fix. So I thought, it's the first version. It's in there. This is what to do. Because people will come across the problem. They will see it and they will think, you know what, at least I know how to fix it.
Yeah. I gotta say, I've read the book and I read that part. And it didn't come across as strange or sloppy to me.
Oh, good, thank you.
It just came across honest, and actually it feels to me that you were ahead of all of us in terms of unpacking this new technology that's coming our way, and you're kind of the spearhead trying to clear the bushes for us to ease the path. That's the way I read it.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, that's what I want people to get from the book. I want them to read it and think, you know what? I'm not teaching you how to be an expert at all. I'm paving the way for you, to turn around. Because as developers, we all don't want to copy and paste each other's code. We want to really, explore ourselves. That's the kick we get. So this is just your path into it. Away you go, and go and build something amazing.
Great. Right. So I think you already covered a lot of the questions I had about the process of writing the book and the process of finding documentation or solutions for the problems in the book. I would like to ask you next, and how has been the interest for the book so far? Like, did the publisher share some stats with you in terms of interest?
Not yet. I've not had anything back. I think I only get a statement every quarter, so I'll be looking forward to that coming through and seeing how the sales have been. I've had some feedback from yourself. It's very kind. And something nice the other day, I sent the book to my apprentices at work, expecting them to go, yeah, that's cool, and put it to one side. And one of them came back a few days later and said, right, I'm up to chapter 4. I've done this. This is great. And I was like, oh, right, he's reading it. So that was great. That was good to hear. He was really getting his teeth into it, and he'd been looking forward to it. So that was nice feedback. But at the moment, I've had nothing else through yet, other than, a few people have had a look through it and stuff. But yeah, nothing else of yet, but I'm hoping to hear something soon.
Yeah.
Just more, I think for me, it's just more, there's two sides of it. One, from an author perspective, so I know, is my style of writing, is the way I present things good? Does people benefit from it, or do I need to change anything? And also just more out of again, questioning the content. Is the content right? Have I understood it? For me, from my own personal learning, as what I've learned here from SwiftUI, is that valid? So.
Yeah, I found the book very clearly structured, and also it doesn't get too boring because it's like short and very focused sections.
Yes,
so
yeah.
You can read quite easily, and then you can jump and pick exactly the section you're interested in if you're working on code and want to check back for reference. So I think that's very helpful.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So now DubDub is coming, and there will be for sure new stuff coming. I mean, I don't remember how many sessions were there just for SwiftUI in previous DubDub, but I bet there were like a lot, right?
There were a lot of sessions. I mean, I can't tell you, there was everything in SwiftUI, and also the sessions that weren't labeled SwiftUI as well also covered elements of it, how to do things in SwiftUI. So yeah, it was a real. Because you go to DubDub to learn about, everything, or all your favorite APIs that are going to get updated, or, how to do things new. And then all of a sudden we're overwhelmed with this new SwiftUI. And it's like, I could spend the whole week just looking at SwiftUI and nothing else.
Totally.
So it was very difficult to try and find a nice balance in between, let me soak up all this knowledge why I'm here for SwiftUI. But then you got to remember, you get to see all the videos on replay as well. So, there's a couple of occasions when you say to yourself, what I tended to do was the sessions that I wasn't that too sure if I would watch when I got home, I would go to watch at WWDC, and then the one I missed, I know I would definitely watch because it's one I missed and I wanted to see.
Yeah.
So you kind of had to balance it like that a little bit, but there were a lot of sessions about it, and the queue to speak to the engineers was massive. If you wanted to have 10 minutes with these SwiftUI engineers, it was a long wait. Yeah.
So with all the new stuff for sure coming up, are you planning or for a new version of the book, a revised edition or something like that?
Yeah, so there's no official plan in place, but the author does update the book once every 12 months. So they will obviously approach me because I'm the original author. So, I'll give them, obviously, I'll evaluate how what has changed and how much has changed. I do anticipate quite a lot changing. So I would feel that they would be quite keen to update the book as soon as possible. So yeah, potentially we'll be looking to update the book, but I don't know when that will be, and I'll have to fit it in with the new book because I've already started another book with them as well.
Oh, okay. So now you're going the author route, eh?
Yeah. So they approached me a couple of weeks back and asked me would they do another one. So there's a new book due in November.
Okay, awesome. So do you know the topic already, or
it's called. I'm sure. I think I can share it. It's called Mastering iOS 14. So it's the new mastering series.
Okay.
So that will be out in November.
Awesome. Looking forward.
Hopefully. Yeah.
All right. So my next block is about SwiftUI as a technology, and you've mentioned quite a few points in your presentation.
Yeah.
So first, I think you already mentioned most of it, but like from more of a personal perspective, like how excited are you about SwiftUI, and how positive do you feel about the whole vibe of SwiftUI?
I think if Swift was anything to go by, then I'm really, really, really excited by it, and I'm really positive that it will be driven forward. I'm a little bit of an old school developer. I mean, it's taken me a long time to even get used to auto layout. I like to do things programmatically, So, but you kind of are doing still through SwiftUI, but in the more design tongue, declarative syntax. So yeah, personally, I'm excited about it. I think it will be very quick to knock up interfaces, and I think if we're doing it day in, day out as a job, then it will become second nature to us a lot quicker than building an interface. And we can build an interface really, really quick in storyboards now. That's no problem, or in a nib. That's no problem at all. But I think it will be even quicker, and you get to code it as you're typing it as well. I mean, you can drag and drop, but I think it will have more appeal for those old school programmers like me. So yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Right. Actually, one of my questions was like, do you think SwiftUI will finish the religious war between pro storyboards and against storyboards, and or interface builder in general. And I've met developers who were like, storyboard over my dead body, or like so strong. So very few things I think can polarize so much between the native. I'm not talking about cross-platform and which can also get very very strong, but even within the native community, it would be like a very very big division between interface builder and everything doing in code. So now I think it makes a lot more sense to do everything in code, right? What do you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think the people who do like storyboards and interface builder, I don't think they'll turn around and be like, no, I'm sticking with storyboards. I think they'll quite happily jump ship. It's just that they didn't not like storyboards, so they will look at this and think, oh no, they won't look and think I'm staying with a storyboard. I'm never moving this. They'll be like, yeah, I can type some design code here. Of course, I'm going to jump ship straight away. So yeah, I think it will. I think those who've turned around for many years and said I love storyboards will come out that they probably didn't really like storyboards. They were just they could just do it. Whereas, I mean, for myself, auto layout in a storyboard, I mean, I'm okay now. I can get by, but it's just was never my cup of tea. So for me to see this, it's just like, yep, this is great.
Okay. Actually, auto layout. It's I was teaching recently, like some of the participants have said.
Yeah.
And, I ran a survey at the end of this introductory course for iOS development, and I was trying to gauge, what went well, what didn't go so well. And the number one point of frustration for students was auto layout. In particular, how the whole layout would go bananas with just one single wrongly defined constraint. So everything is laid out, and then one constraint is wrong, and then boom, everything goes all to the right. So but at the same time, auto layout is this super powerful, super generic way of defining any layout. So can you be so precise in SwiftUI?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, I haven't gone too deep into. I mean, I think my problem is because I don't have so much of an appreciation of the fine tuning of auto layout. My auto layout skills are quite basic. I haven't had to compare it to anything really complex. But I think one of the things that jumped to mind is when you're building the declarative syntax, it's and I think obviously you'll see this with the V stacks and the H stacks and the Z stacks that you can use in there. A lot of things are stacked on top of each other. So it reminded me a touch, and I'll probably get shot for saying this, but it reminded me a touch of the early Android XML days, where you would just stack everything on top of each other. Mm-hmm. It's that with a lot more intelligent. And I mean, I know Android brought constraints in as well on top of that. But yeah, again, whether it can do it for the fine precision of things, I'm not too sure yet. But I mean, for what I've wanted to use it for, when I've been testing it, obviously when I was building the demo apps for the book and also some little side project, everything that I would have wanted, I knew how to do and how to do well in auto layout, I was able to do with SwiftUI.
All right, great. All right. Okay, so I would like to go now to a new blog on applying SwiftUI, what it means, and to apply SwiftUI to real projects. And my first question would be like, how much of a learning curve do you think there is for someone familiar, in principle, with someone familiar with the UI kit, someone who gone through all the process of learning more or less UI kit to a decent degree, which is already quite an achievement. How much of a learning curve do you think there is to jump into SwiftUI?
I think there's a big learning curve, but not a difficult one, if that kind of makes sense. So I think there is a lot to take in, and it does do things differently. But I think it's done in a much more simpler way. I think the simple does go across the board. Everything from the way you write the syntax to how you understand what it does and how you implement. So yeah, I think there is a lot to learn, but it won't be too much of a seasoned developer. It won't be too much of an ask of a seasoned developer to do. And especially if they're proficient in UI kits, then they've already got that mindset anyway. So again, it would be even less so.
All right. And for a newcomer, for a person who's coming new to iOS development,
newcomer, again, I think you know, it would be, it would be something they could pick up, no problem. I think that's where the declarative syntax side of it will help, because they don't need to worry about how to arrange and how to do it. It's just learning about what it does and how they want to get it to do it. So they can take a little bit of the worry, you know, the learning side away from that. So no, I think they've got a very good balance between someone who's a seasoned UI developer and someone who would be brand new, without a doubt. And if anything, that's probably one of its main advantages, in my opinion.
Okay. So could it be even misleading, like you were saying it was important in your presentation, you were saying that it's important to understand UIKit underneath. So maybe it could be a little misleading that you see all this super concise syntax, and then you just go very fast, and then you hit a road bump, and then all of a sudden you find yourself going a rabbit hole, bridging to UIKit and trying to learn about obscure aspects of UIKit.
Yeah, that's the only side of which could throw a newcomer. I mean, but which is why I put in my slide, it's still important to understand. At this point in time, it's still important to understand and appreciate UIKit. You know, so, you know, any new developer coming along, would I tell them to jump straight into SwiftUI? No, not yet. Maybe in version 2, let's see what they release and see how easy it is to connect. Maybe they'll change the way the representable protocol works. They'll make it, you know, when I first saw the representable protocol, I thought this is a lot of faff just to, you know, to plug in UIKit. And then when I stopped and I broke it down, just like I did in my slide, it's actually very, very simple to do. But if I was a brand new developer who'd never touched it before, I would probably be very overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But even if I had a base knowledge of how it works, how, say, delegates for a table view works, then that representable example, I would understand it straight away, because you're just seeing a view with your delegates, you know, being constructed in a wrapper. That's all it is. So that's why at this moment in time, it is important to still keep yourself up to date. You know, still learn UIKit. Again, 2 years time. I mean, I wouldn't tell a new developer now to learn Objective C. I would tell them to learn Swift. You know, I mean, if they're interested, obviously, but
right.
But at the moment, yeah.
I think that's great, and I can relate a lot to that feeling, because I came relatively late to iOS development, and there was already Swift 2, or I think it was Swift 2, and that was when I was learning Swift. And then I would try and find solutions to problems, and then I would go to Stack Overflow, and then I would find so many answers in Objective-C.
Yeah.
And I was so frustrated because also it was not only Objective-C, but combined with some obscure UIKit corners. And that would be like, oh, it's so much to learn. So I got the feeling that it would never be finished to get a good overview of the platform. So I can imagine the same could happen for somebody coming new to and thinking that SwiftUI is going to take away all their needs.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, okay. So you mentioned that SwiftUI is not only for iOS. That's kind of the use case that everybody has in mind, but it's also capable of deploying apps for watchOS and even macOS.
Sorry, go on.
No, like, what do you think of this? This is new opportunities, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this starts to really, you know, I mean, bridge the gap between. When I say cross-platform, I don't mean cross-platform in terms of iOS and Android. I mean cross-platform as in terms of Apple products. It really starts to bridge the gap between cross-platform. I mean, and then on top of that, Apple announced Catalyst, which was, you know, you develop your iPad app and it becomes a Mac App Store app, which is fantastic. But yeah, I mean, you know, we can still write code now in UIKit in ways that we can reuse components for both Watch and potentially for, I mean, Watch not so much because it's a little quite tightly coupled with WK interfaces objects. But you know, for macOS as well, for those that you know, again, you share custom written logic, but not necessarily custom frameworks because it's AppKit and UIKit. But what SwiftUI likes you to do is it lets you just pick up, you know, a droplet of syntax of code that you've created for one, and because it's not tied to a framework or tied to a platform, and add it to another. So in the book, one of the examples I give is the list that we created. The way we've built the list up for the recipe app is literally dropped in the exact same way into the Watch app. So the work's done for us there. So, it's not perfect at the moment, and it will evolve. I think it'll be driven by how many people do that with it, how many people, start to write code that they can reuse across Watch and Mac OS. I think it all depends on how much this whole Catalyst takes off with Mac OS as well. But if the community does get behind it, they will continue to support it. They will continue to make it more streamlined, and you will just literally soon you will have one code base that runs everything. And I think we saw the start. I mentioned it in the book. We saw the start of it with Watch. I mean, they started to introduce the originally Watches were companion apps, and then they introduced the standalone apps, and this was the start of that. This was the start of the separation away from extensions. And start to decouple. So it really is. It's on the roadmap without a doubt. But it's just how much the community drives it forward, I think, will determine what route it takes.
Right. So maybe going a little bit on a tangent, but since you mentioned Catalyst, I've seen a lot of enthusiasm out there about SwiftUI, also about Combine. It's picking up really fast in the it's one of the hot topics. But then Catalyst was kind of a meh reaction, right?
Yeah, and that was really confusing, because for years everyone kept, WWDC was coming. People were asked, "What do you want?" And they all wanted Marzipan, which was UI kit on Mac or app kit on or some merging. They all wanted Marzipan, and they gave us Catalyst, which was fantastic in my opinion. And then it's just been a bit quiet, but it worked really well. I mean, I used the client on my iPhone, my iPad, and my Mac, and it works great. I believe the Jira app, for those who use Jira, is a Catalyst app. That works great. So I don't know. I mean, you build a really good iPad app. There's no reason why you should. If it's got appeal for a desktop, then push it to the Mac App Store. I know you are. The problem you have there is how many third-party frameworks that you have in there. So if you're building against third-party frameworks that don't support it, then obviously you can't build. But if you started something from scratch, you'd be silly not to. So maybe it will take people time to do that. And people releasing their apps don't want to support minimum of iOS 13 yet. So maybe, yes, we've all been asking for it. Maybe they gave it us in a way that, it's very powerful the way they've given it us, but maybe it's not quite the way we're going to use straight away. Again, it will take time to evolve. So hopefully, I like the idea behind it. I'm quite excited by it.
Okay. All right. So you also mentioned about the UI kit. No, how is it? The protocol for UI view representable. Did I get that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So that means that you can match UI kit and SwiftUI. Are there pitfalls around that, or is it straightforward and just works?
I haven't had any issues with it yet. I mean, I've seen a lot of videos. I've seen a lot of tutorials about it working very well. I used MapKit to do the same, and it worked flawlessly. So I think they've done a really, really good job with it. It really just seems to be a wrapper. It's a wrapper that creates the view that is interpreted by SwiftUI as a view to display on the screen. So I've not seen any pitfalls with it at the moment. I think looking at the example I gave as well, I can't see there being any reason for it not to work for any other objects as well. Maybe if you've written something custom, might be a different story. But again, it's just literally a wrapper to harnessing a view and displaying it in SwiftUI. So I think it's a good option. But do you want to? Are you really developing a SwiftUI if you're putting everything in a wrapper? Well, yeah, you kind of are to a degree. It's just the controls that Apple made for you, you're not using. You're using the other controls that Apple made via a wrapper, but you're still developing in SwiftUI, I guess. But maybe you're not harnessing the power of the SwiftUI components because they haven't built them yet.
Right. Yeah. Also, one of the aspects that was heavily pushed by Apple when SwiftUI was presented, and one that I think is very, very close to your heart, is accessibility, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So accessibility is, and this was, as you know, I love accessibility. But WWDC last year was, second to security, or maybe not second to security, maybe on a par with security. It was something that they pushed at pretty much every session. Even if it wasn't an accessibility session, they would give you an overview of, okay, and if you wanted to use accessibility with this is how you would do it. And it was amazing to see. And they wasn't ramming it in your face. They were teaching you, they're educating you in a great way. And SwiftUI was no different. And SwiftUI works out of the box with accessibility. I ran out of chapters, unfortunately, and I couldn't get an accessibility chapter in there. I ran out of time. Would like to have done, but a close friend of mine, he's more of an accessibility advocate than I am, and he's just actually released a book as well last week. So I can always send you the notes out to put in the meetup. A guy called Rob Whittaker, really great guy, and really knows his stuff about accessibility. So if you're interested in that side of it, and he does a lot of blog posts on SwiftUI, absolutely point you in his direction.
Yeah. I think it still requires a lot of advocating, especially from the developer side, because if you can imagine, an agile team is our role. The developer who is familiar with the platform is the person who understands more deeply all these aspects. And
yes,
I think it's important that we have a duty to advocate for this inclusiveness and this sort of accessibility that's already built in. And if you go to your team and say, hey, team, we can make this so much more accessible, and it's almost for free. I just need to do, maybe small task, a 3 or a 5 in a Fibonacci scale, and hopefully that will get more accessibility out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's about making it the normal way to develop. If it becomes your standard developer, I think maybe I mentioned it at my talk last year. Accessibility is a lot of the way unit test or unit testing, UI test, tools are written by hooking into accessibility elements. So, you can say to everyone, okay, we're going to push a big push here for UI testing, which will in turn will force you to add accessibility labels. It might not be the perfect app for accessibility, but at least you've made a start. You've got the elements there. Yeah. Which is good, and vice versa. It works both ways as well. If you keep on top of accessibility, as a squad or individually, when it comes to doing a UI test, a lot of the work's done for you. So try and find ways to make it work for you and your team. But yeah, it's something that's it's something that everyone should be at least trying to think about as best as they can.
Yeah. All right. Okay, my last block, and I want to leave plenty of time for participants to join the discussion.
Yeah,
it's about the future of SwiftUI, and that was just announced this week. I think it was Tuesday that it was announced, and it's going to be online this year, like everything, of course.
Yeah.
And it's going to be free for everybody, so no longer being left out of the lottery.
yeah, no more lottery. Yeah.
So, my question would be what is your wish list? If you could choose, what would be the brightest future for SwiftUI this year? And on one side, on the other side, what do you think is going to happen for real?
Okay. So wish list for SwiftUI. What do I really want to see? I want to see more controls, which I think we will. I'd like to see, again, the interface between old UI elements is always still going to be there for a while, but maybe try and find a way to simplify it a little bit. Again, for a seasoned developer, it's, like I was explaining before, you could look at it and you could understand what it was doing, but maybe for someone new coming in, a year on, start to make that breakaway where they don't have to rely on the knowledge of UI kit so much, because, if they do that, if they force their hand like that, it will accelerate fast. SwiftUI will accelerate faster and it will grow. So I think for me, it would be more controls. It would be less crashes in Xcode, because sometimes the canvas can just halt and it just drives me insane. And like I said, especially when you're frustrated at 1 o'clock in the morning looking for a bug, and then you think you found it, and then Xcode and then the canvas crashes, and think, have I crashed the canvas or is it just Xcode? And there's so many times actually. I think there was one night when I think I restarted my machine 5 times because Xcode was just, I think it was I can't remember if I was using I think I was using the beta version of Xcode, because I wanted to see if I could fix the bug with the beta. And yeah, it just the canvas just kept crashing and kept crashing and kept crashing, and then eventually and then the next morning it was just fine. And then it ran for about a week without a problem. It's like, what changed? What actually changed? So yeah, more stability, but I mean that will come. They'll get the crash reports through from the thousands and thousands of people using it. So more stability with Xcode and just more controls. Just to see more of it. And so that's my wish list. And realistically, do I see that happening? Yeah, I think I do actually. I think that is more. So I think that hopefully I like to think I'll be satisfied with the announcement this year.
Okay, and you already touched on that, but I would like you to maybe nail it even more. Like, what kind of advice? And also, we have some young students here.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give to somebody approaching iOS development in terms of how much investment should they put as of today into SwiftUI versus other aspects of iOS development?
Okay, so I kind of think it depends where you're coming from. So if you're a brand new developer from scratch and you want to learn just about development in general, I think SwiftUI offers a good basis. I don't think it's too, although it's still in its infancy, I don't think it's too young to give a budding developer. I mean, Flutter uses declarative syntax now, so it's going to become, like I said, it's going to become the way to go going forward. So I think, yeah, have a look at SwiftUI if you're new to development. It will be, it could be a less daunting way to look at things. It'll give you an understanding of the fundamentals of programming, for sure. With how you iterate around a list, declaring variables, etc., etc. Whereas a brand new developer could potentially be put off when they look at things like understanding the delegate pattern from the start. I mean, we've all done it, but still, it's less daunting than that. For someone who is new to programming and wants to come over is a seasoned programmer but wants to come over to iOS, then yeah, again, have a look at it, but don't expect, like I said, going back to, is it production ready? Don't expect all singing and dancing. If you want to really get your teeth into it as a seasoned programmer, but you're new to iOS, then yeah, keep your eye on it, keep it in the background, understand what it's doing and where it's going. But yeah, focus more on the UI kit stuff at the moment, and continues. Learn. Take the time to learn the basics. 12 months time, or even in 2 months time after WWDC, we may be giving different advice. But as it stands now, that would be my advice.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chris. That's the end of my interviewing. I'm gonna open up for questions. Before we do that,
thank you.
I'd like to maybe go over the agenda one more time, and we will be giving away 10 books to participants here today at the end of the session. And I think we can organize it as follows. So again, I'm going to the tile view where I see all participants here, and you have this button which is like a raised hand. So I would suggest you raise your hand, and then maybe I let you, Chris, address each person. And then I welcome you to turn on your video and your camera and have a chat with Chris, and just participate. So
cool.
I think we can do that now.
Awesome.
Come on, I can say something if anyone is going to ask. So my question was going to be, because just yesterday I started to give a try to run Swift in Linux. I just wanted to do some desktop application, like terminal application. I was trying to use Swift in Linux and so on. My question is, do you think that the community could create something as SwiftUI but applicable for normal desktop application? But because I suppose that this kind of framework is going to be private by Apple, and Apple is going never to release it. But I don't know if the community could create something similar.
I mean, obviously, I think going back to Adrian's comment about a wish list, open source would be nice. Whether Apple will take that route with SwiftUI like they did with Swift, I don't know. But would the community build something similar that sits on top? Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. That would be amazing if they did. Would that force Apple's hand to open source SwiftUI and allow it to be built on Linux applications? I mean, I don't know. They've seen what the community have done with server-side Swift since it was open sourced. But yeah, I mean, there's always the grounds for building something from the community. I would be very excited to see something like that, without a doubt. Yeah, that would actually be really cool. But what would be more cool if Apple would open source it for us, and then, you know, we could tweak it. We could build the things we wanted ourselves, and, you know, in the way we want. So, be interesting.
Yes, thank you very much. I was muted, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I can ask a question. So my question is, since we wait until the adoption of iOS 13 to use SwiftUI for more devices, do you think that learning the SwiftUI paradigm, we can apply the same paradigm also on building interfaces with the UI kit somehow?
I mean, they're built in very, very different ways. So, I mean, there is no way to build anything from declarative syntax now in UI kit. So, what I would do is, this is a project that I'd like to start at work, because we are at least 3 years away from using SwiftUI. But obviously, maybe the first 12 months, just spend the time to learn and watch the community and see what happens. Let's see what happens with version 2. And then maybe after that, start on a side project or maybe another branch, start to build in elements for SwiftUI, compare them side by side and see how well they work. Not necessarily to release, because we can't, but to build, you know, and see, you know, will SwiftUI work for us? You know, we can see if there's any problems with what we do, and then we can see how it evolves over the years. So when the time does come in 3 years' time, we have a better understanding not only of SwiftUI as a framework, but we also have a better understanding of what it's going to offer for us as well.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I have a quick question as well. Yeah, thanks, Chris, for the talk. To start with, that was
thank you very much. You're welcome.
Really great, pretty insightful. So the question is, let's say, you know, I work at a company and I need to convince my product manager to use SwiftUI.
Yeah.
It's gonna take me more time to build a UI, at least the first iteration, than it would take me with UIKit or AppKit in my case. So what would be, and you know, if they read somewhere that is not production ready, they may feel nervous. So what could be the reasons to, you know, for a company product-wise to use SwiftUI?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I've actually thought about the same question myself, because you're right, the first iteration will take a lot longer. And it's trying to validate that against, you know, cost and obviously deliverables for businesses. For me, I think it would be going back to the slide about bringing the full stack development in. You know, it's the ability for, you know, we have a designer in our team, or we have a designer allocated to our squad. He designs with Zeppelin or whatever tools he uses. He'll pass us them over, and then we sit there in Interface Builder and we do the constraints. He comes over, he says, no, you're 6 pixels off there. He comes over and says, no, you're that. We play again a few days later. It'd be great if he was part of the squad sat with us. It would be great if he was sat there. He, you know, maybe he wouldn't even need to use a product anymore to do the designs. He would use Xcode. Xcode would be his designing tool. It would allow him to do his wireframes in SwiftUI. And if that is the way that I feel, and I really do feel strongly about how SwiftUI is going to go, that would be the validation. That's where you would save the money. You know, the designer becomes part of the team, and as he's designing it, you know, the work is already done. And we then, as the application or the service layer developers, then we hook into it. So that would be my push to a business, or like to a product owner or product manager, and just say, look, you know, this is the way this is the way this looks to be going. I mean, I hope it goes that way. You know, I'd love to see a plugin for Zeppelin that allows us, you know, to do export to SwiftUI, and it exports the syntax, and we copy and paste it in, or he copies and pastes it in, and then he can tweak it. You know, that becomes his job. He becomes a front end developer. So that would be my push. You know, that's the way I see it. That's the way I see it going. I mean, it could be wrong, and it may not happen that way. And you know, be gone with the developers, they can stay with Photoshop in the corner of the office, but who knows?
Yeah. Cool. Oh, that's a great point. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
I want to know if you are talking about SwiftUI, of course. I know if you agree with the generative way, so like Flutter, like Jet Compose, and of course the SwiftUI. You agree with this way, or you prefer the old way? This better. This what you want to do. If you want to decide a way now,
Yeah.
Sure, SwiftUI maybe is like you in the slide. It's not perfect finished.
Yes.
Like Swift the 5.2 that is in a good situation now. Is we can use better. It's wonderful than Objective-C now.
Yeah.
And this is the question. Thanks.
Yeah. So I think I like what SwiftUI has to offer. I think as it stands now at the moment, I still would prefer to stick with. If I had to choose between one or the other, obviously I would stick with UIKit because there's a lot more to offer. It's a lot more stable. In say 3 or 4 years' time, if it's evolved as quick, if SwiftUI has evolved as quickly as Swift did, then yeah, absolutely, I think I would definitely go down that route of sticking with the way to develop, because even from the way we use, even the way they build Xcode to the way of displaying things in the canvas and the hot reloading is so much quicker and faster way of developing. And going back from one of the previous questions about, again, integrating with the development with the design patterns so much easier as well for us, and being able to make those tweaks and work closely, I think that's definitely a great way forward. Because it's not going to take over the whole of an iOS development. You're not going to take away all the fun, because either as a sole developer or a small business or a small team, you're still going to have to do all the API calls. You're still going to have to do all the database calls. So you still get to write the code. You still get to that's never going to change. This is a UI framework that they've built. But if it can make that UI framework, the UI aspects of the development a lot easier, and hopefully a lot more powerful, then yeah, absolutely. Going forward, I think I would definitely be on board with using SwiftUI. But again, it all depends how quickly it moves.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, Chris.
Hello.
Yeah, thank you for your time today and what you presented.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Most of what I was going to ask already somebody asked, but I was saying that right now iOS 13 is at 70% of the devices, and SwiftUI, I believe it's like you said, it's production ready with UI representable and everything else. That's some things. And just to add something, not most of the question, but I think that Figma already helps you to export in SwiftUI for the.
Oh, fantastic!
That's I think it's in beta, but it's working really nice.
Oh, fantastic! I'd heard lots of companies were looking to do it. Adding a plugin or developing packages, but that's fantastic. So the journey has begun for that. That merge for full stack iOS developer or the or the front end iOS developer, whoever he is. So that's great news. Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, that's
so
brilliant.
I think that Zeppelin is going to go there.
Yeah. I'd be very surprised if it doesn't. I mean, I haven't checked for a while. I mean, I did check early last year to see if there'd been any talk, and there'd been some comments on forums, but nothing official. But I've not checked for a while, so that's great to hear. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So sorry, my question should be that if iOS 13 is at 70% right now of the devices, shouldn't that be great to start thinking right now to looking into SwiftUI and how to implement it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, personally, from a personal perspective, anytime I write a new app, whether it would just be a small app for the App Store, that I do in my spare time, I always use against the latest SDK because I never bother going back a version because of how how big the adoption rate is. Especially since over-the-air updates, and they're just flawless now. They work so well. There's no reason not to. The problem you might get is, for example, my company, we're a fashion retailer, so we have the demographic of our customers quite various brands have different age ranges. So one of our brands has quite young audience, so the majority of them are on iOS 13 on their phones because they've got the latest phones and they update. And then another brand we have is for women age 50 plus, and they still have an iPhone 4 and they don't want to upgrade. They don't know how to switch automatic updates on, but the percentage of them, because we're quite a big brand, is still quite high. It's quite high to turn around and take the cuts and say, don't support iOS 10, don't support iOS 11. Because we would upset a lot of customers. I mean, we have fallbacks. They could go to the web, or they could call to place their order. But as an app squad, we want people, to use our app. So we're governed by that, our customers, and obviously by the trading team, because it's frustrating. I mean,
that's a reality. Yeah,
I've been asking to drop iOS 10. So I mean, funny used to say I had a bug earlier in the week which stopped a release because it was breaking a carousel on iOS 10, and I was like, no, and they're like, we have to fix it, and I was like, oh, but it's just one of those things. So but I keep asking weekly. I ask, can we drop iOS 10? No. Okay, I'll ask you again next week.
Thank you for your service. Yeah.
No. But no, thank you for your question.
Thank you, guys.
If no one say, I would like to ask again another thing. Sorry, it's Francisco.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here. So my concern is about complex UI, because every single example that we saw here is usually and when the sample that we can see on the internet, so all of them are usually lists like UI table view with not so customized element over there. So, but at the end, when we are working the application, usually the designer, they really create really complex views, or at least in the company that have been working. And most of the time, like 70% of the time, you are working just with adjusting the layout as the designer wanted. So my concern here is how SwiftUI, if SwiftUI somehow could have performance issues like updating so often the view, because I see like somehow you lose the control about when the view is updated. And I'm concerned if really complex views that could have like a table view that contains inside scrollable horizontal scrollable element, and inside you have buttons, and inside you have UI text field, and so on. I'm not sure how this would behave.
Yeah, that would be a tricky one. I think it would just be a case of trial and error. I mean, you would have to. Again, this is going back to an early answer I gave. You would have to have use it as a learning process. Have a look at some. If you want to adopt SwiftUI, have a look and say, okay, what's the most complex piece of view logic I have? As it stands now with version 1, how can I recreate that, and how does it work? I think luckily, because the representable protocol is once you understand how it works, it is very easy to implement. I think once you've built that once, I think everything else, all your your cells would have collection views inside for carousels, etc. That will all live inside the representable wrapper. So I think it's just a case of just playing with it one bit at a time. I don't think they will deprecate, even as more controls come out in the future, I don't think they will deprecate the support for the representable, because I think as long as UI collection view, for example, or anything else is still available, you will still be able to wrapper it. It may be that the new offering in the next release is faster, has more features, but obviously they will appreciate the fact that people still will have custom, custom views that they need to load, they need to use. Again, I think it's just a case of just having a play, trying to see how well it works, taking it one step at a time. I know we've got a carousel, a homepage which has multiple banners. In there we have carousels within a list view already at cell. We have videos playing. We have lots of stuff going on. So I know that would be a complex for us, and we'd have to do a lot of wrapper around that. Would it impact? Would it have an impact on performance? Again, I don't think it would, because I think it literally is just a wrapper, and SwiftUI is just a view that will present itself. So I don't think there'll be any performance hindrance there. But again, it's one of them you just have to piece out one bit at a time and try. Use this time now, until you can support it if you are hindered by supporting SwiftUI. Use this time to play with it. It gives you a good idea of, it may structure your work for the next 6 months to say, okay, we need to actually start refactoring this, because if we are to port to SwiftUI, we need to streamline what we've got now. There could be a piece of UI collection view logic that you've done so much customization to, but iOS powers it and makes it work really well. Well, under the hood, actually, you could probably spend a lot of time improving the performance on that on its own, and then when you come to wrap it for SwiftUI, it works really, really nice. So I think there's a lot can be learned from it.
Did you by chance compare like a same view built in the usual way and with SwiftUI, if the memory usage, the CPU speed, battery consumption, and so on, if they are similar by chance? I don't know if you check it with the profilers and so on.
I had a very quick go. So in the book, I do MapKit, which I wrap around the representable, and I tried it in both. I did, because I originally wrote it in a separate app, so I could then build it into the book, and I didn't see any performance issues. Now, I was only running that on the Mac on the simulator at the time, but everything seemed to be working fine. It was fast. It presented itself well. Instruments gave no indication that there was any problems. But that was only running on the simulator. I didn't get around to trying that on the device. So, something like MapKit, maybe you would expect it to perform okay anyway. But obviously, there's a little bit more in MapKit than there is in, say, collection view. So it was a good start. But I think it's just a case you may just have to trial and error. But I personally, I don't see there being many issues.
Okay, thank you. So then we should give a try, I will say.
Yeah.
Sooner the better. Yeah, thank you very much.
No, thank you.
So I think Ale had another question. So Ale W, would you like to go ahead, please?
Ale, I think you're mute.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, you are not muted, but the audio is not coming in, so maybe it's a problem with your...
Una tostada y se va a comer el corazón. Comió una tostada y comió y le quedó un pedacito como con forma de corazón.
Ale.
What about now?
Yeah, now.
No, that's good.
Okay. First of all, thank you for the speech.
You're welcome. Thank you.
My question is about, in your opinion, how hard will it be to master SwiftUI? Because when I saw the WC presentation, like everything was so good, SwiftUI did a lot of things for you, but when you want to mess up with the layout, with what SwiftUI does for you, the code gets really messy and hard to follow. That was my opinion. That's why I want to hear yours.
Yeah, so to master SwiftUI, I think if you was to start now, it would be. I think that's the right time to start. I think you will be off to a good start, because although it does offer a lot and it is very powerful, it's still. I don't think it will be. I think there'll be a lot more to offer in 2-3 years' time. Obviously, you'll always be learning something new with every release. So I think it's just a case of you'll master it as well as you'll master UI kit. I'm guessing. There'll always be new stuff coming out. It'll have its same complications. It will have its it'll have the same kind of little bit of gotchas and little imperfections here and there. So becoming a master of it will just be something that you will do over time. I suppose it depends how much you look to use SwiftUI in your app. I think if you're going to go a full SwiftUI app, without anything, without hooking into any existing UI kit controls, I think you'll become quite proficient quite quickly. I believe with if you release an app now with the controls working as well as they do and what's currently on offer, you've hit a good percentage. I mean, animations I cover in the book, they're quite basic at the animations that I cover in the book, but they are exceptionally powerful. It's the little core components like that that will be the ones that will evolve very quickly, and also be the ones that you'll need to spend time mastering. But that said, that's the same with UI kit. I can do basic animations in UI kit, but I'm nowhere near a master of that. So I think it depends on what area to focus on. But I said before, I see SwiftUI. If it does take off as well as I hope it does, I think the idea is to get on board with it now. So you're always one step ahead of the game.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, everybody. I think it was a nice round of questions. And
Cool. No, thank you very much, everyone.
I would have one last question. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry. Yeah, just kicking in. As I said, I'm a newcomer, totally. So obviously, for me, it's always interesting just keeping like a wide eye open, because obviously I never know what I might end up going into. And as you said at one point, you think SwiftUI could also divide how, like, have more of a front-end position and someone more on the application side. Do you see, like, an actual new job role coming up, like, hey, we want just a designer and then someone else doing the application logic? Or do you see just everything together?
Yes, I do. I'd like to see that. I think it would be great. I mean, iOS teams are relatively small. I mean, take my team at work, for example. I'm renowned for being a good fault finder. If anyone wants to find a bug in the app, they send it to me because, I'm the guy who can get to the bottom of it. But then my colleague, who I would say is an equal level as I am, he's the UI expert. So anything to do with constraints or auto layout or the way UI should be presented or using the right tools or the right UI kit elements to implement it, he's your man. And that's great because we're a small team and it works well. But imagine if you had a bigger team working on a big app, and say there was 5 or 6 of you. I think it lends itself to bringing a way to separate the project. There are some people out there who do just like to do the code, who love just to talk, write the API calls out there, or write the code data experts, and they just want to sit and play with data persistence in an app, and they don't want to touch the front end. They don't look at a storyboard, or they're not interested in that. They check their code books by writing a unit test for it. So with a bigger team, same as say maybe a team of 10 developers, then I do see that position opening up. I do see people, projects being separated by front end and back end, where one person will just be in charge of the UI. They can tailor a lot more to the Apple human interface guidelines as well. Then rather than it being a sole responsibility of everyone, it's especially for a product that's very UI intensive. I think it could really help drive a product forward. But that's obviously a product that requires a lot of developers. So maybe something like a retail app, not so much, but maybe something like enterprise storage app like Dropbox or something like that, that's probably got a lot of stuff going on under the hood, then maybe something would benefit. So I'd like to see it. Definitely would like to see that, without a doubt.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you.
All right. So I think we can, I would like to share my screen just before going into the next part, which of course everybody's looking forward to, which is the giveaway of the book. So let me quickly share my screen. Right. Just a brief. Can you see my screen? Yes. Just a brief final note, because we will be ending the recording and we will continue the session for the giveaway. But the recording we're gonna end up now. So if you've been watching this as a replay, then this is who we are, Malaga Mobile Meetup. This is where to find us, and reach out, get in contact, find out about our new upcoming sessions. I think we will still hold at least 1 or 2 more sessions online because of the current situation. So thanks for watching, and let's finish the recording.